Elizabeth Ropp, and I'm running for re-election as Hillsborough County's Register of Probate. I won my last election by over 5,000 votes. In my first term, I went above and beyond the expectations of the position. I have represented my constituents who feel that the Register of Probate office should be restored to an actual position. In 2011, the Register of Probate became a symbolic title with no actual work or responsibilities. I spoke with lawyers and a legal assistant who told me that the automated probate process is confusing. I spoke with a mother who has legal guardianship of her adult son. She told me about the difficulty of navigating probate court on his behalf. I also spoke with a mental health professional and his clients about their own issues with probate court when it comes to legal guardianships. I took all this feedback to the House Judiciary Committee for a bipartisan bill to restore Register of Probate to its original function. I continue to do my part to advocate for community-based mental health. 3 years ago, I worked with legislators to pass a law that allows the recovery and mental health community and other peer counselors to be trained and certified in ear acupuncture. In 2019, the Governor's Opioid Recovery Task Force endorsed the expansion of ear acupuncture services, and the Manchester Board of Mayor and Aldermen voted unanimously to provide funding for training. In my next term, I will continue to go above and beyond what's expected of the Register of Probate. I will continue to promote issues that support the health of our communities. In addition to expanding ear acupuncture services, we need to raise the minimum wage in New Hampshire. And we need to pass paid family medical leave. But we can't do any of this unless we elect good candidates both up and down the ticket. So I appreciate your support in the upcoming election. All right, hi, welcome to Ward 13. I am not John Hopwood. I am Elizabeth Ropp, just seen in that video, and I am currently your Register of Probate, and I hope to continue to be your Register of Probate. And I am here today with the Honorable Mark MacKenzie, candidate for the Executive Council.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, and it's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this and pitching in for our host, John. That's nice of you to do that.
Yeah, so I want to just talk to you about everything that you've done in New Hampshire. You've always been such a strong community leader. You're a labor leader. You're a firefighter. You've served in the House, and now you're running for the Executive Council. And I met you on the Bernie Sanders campaign.
That's right.
I was brand new. I mean, I was around doing activism work, but I had never worked on a presidential campaign before. I was all in for Bernie. You were all in for Bernie. Yep. I mean, those were some really great times. And where I met a lot of well-connected people, and I saw a lot of people really getting their start.
I think the excitement that Bernie generated during that time, has really helped, this where we are right now. Mm-hmm. I think Joe Biden is doing a good job, and I think Bernie helped to get him there. And I look forward to this election, to a new direction in our country. And also, as I look at the state and the stuff that's going on in the state, I think I can play a role in the Executive Council. And you're right. I mean, I've been doing this work for a long time. We met for the Bernie campaign. You helped me on my congressional campaign when I ran. I think it was the first House party I did for the congressional campaign. And so really my whole life has been about working families and fighting for the interests of working families. I cut my teeth in Manchester, in the labor movement in Manchester as a firefighter, went on strike in 1978, was out 10 days and lowered the hours and increased the pay and benefits for firefighters in Manchester. Mm-hmm. Went on to be the legislative agent for the AFL-CIO and professional firefighters, and then finally was elected as the president of the AFL-CIO in New Hampshire.
And how long were you the president of the AFL-CIO?
More than 25 years, the longest serving president in the United States, as far as we know.
Wow.
And so I did that a long time, but I mean, really the AFL-CIO is one of the leaders in the progressive movement. And I always looked at myself from that perspective and the work that we did from that perspective. And, I've had the opportunity to meet a whole bunch of people and terrific activists like yourself and others in the state. And it's great work, and I enjoy it, and I continue to enjoy it. And I think I can make a contribution to the discussion that's going on right now and contribute to the Executive Council's work.
And you know, so about 4 years ago when I got involved in the Bernie Sanders campaign, I heard of the Executive Council, but I didn't know what it was. And so can you tell us, like, what is the Executive Council?
Well, the Executive Council, there are 5 people who serve from 5 districts in the state. Each district represents about 260 some odd thousand people. The districts, in some cases, don't make a lot of sense, but it's the way it is. And what the council's overall responsibility is, and the reason it was established, was to really rein in the executive authority. So they did not want a centralized figure that was like the governor, like places where they had where they came from in England and other places. They really wanted a system where that responsibility was disseminated over a broader group of people. So, i.e., the Executive Council. And there have been attempts to repeal the Executive Council over the course of the years, but people in New Hampshire like it. Now, the easiest way for me to explain it is to put it in terms, and I've been struggling with this because to have people understand it. But think about it this way: think about sitting around your kitchen table, and you make decisions at your kitchen table, and you decide, I'm going to put a new roof on, or I'm going to hire somebody that's going to paint, or things like that. And so you go to the bank. So in this case, in this environment, think of the bank as the legislature. And so the legislature really takes the needs and the wants of people, and you pitch the legislature. You go in and talk to them and say, okay, at the end of all this, we're gonna give you the opportunity. We're gonna give you the money, just like the bank would, to do the work that you want to do. Now, here's the tough part. Now you have to come back and you have to go through the bidding process, just like you would at the table. Who's the best person? And you come back and you make a decision, and the legislature gives you the bank. So this is what the Executive Council does. We are at that point where decisions are being made about who actually does the work in New Hampshire. Now, let me draw a distinction, though, between the work of the Executive Council and the way it works, and the way it probably works around everybody else's kitchen table in the state of New Hampshire. In the end, as a consumer, you pick the contract that has the best value for you.
Right.
You don't always pick the lowest bid, because you want somebody with experience and follows the law and hires the people. And so, but that's not the case in New Hampshire. For the most part, we use a system called low bid, which means that all of this work that's done, it all comes down to who's got the lowest bid. And Andy Valinsky and others have been advocating for a long time. What does that mean when the person comes in with the low bid? And I passed legislation 10 plus years ago, which was called for best value, not low bid, but best value. And the Republican legislature came in the following year and repealed it all.
Can you cite an example? Like, what kinds of contracts were approved by the Executive Council that went to the lowest bidder, but they might not have necessarily been bring in the best quality? Well,
I mean, quality is I think some departments do better than others, but let's just say I think somebody does it pretty good is a highway department.
Okay.
The Department of Transportation in New Hampshire. The thing is about the Executive Council, let me just state this, that we depend on contracts in New Hampshire to build out the executive government, to build out government in New Hampshire. For the most part, we don't do road work. We don't build buildings. We don't do a lot of that stuff. That's all farmed out. So that's very different than other states who have a full operation going. So take the Department of Transportation. They do a pretty good job. What they do is they take every single bid and they break them all down. And then they say, well, why did this person come in with a low bid? Now, you can look at some of that and you say, well, you got a better deal on the rocks, you got a better deal on this, you got a better deal on that. What you can't find out, though, which is something that I'm interested in, is what did you pay the workers?
Yeah.
You can't find that out. Right. So it's not like the federal environment where you have Davis-Bacon and you know what the wages are going to be and they have to report them and you can do it. In New Hampshire, we really don't know. So you could, road and bridges go into the low bid, which locks out all of the union people that I've represented for all the years. But there are a whole bunch of services that will go to the lowest bidder.
Right.
And it's not the best system.
Right.
It's not the system you use at your house or I use at mine or other people use. What we want is the best value for the money that the people spend. But more importantly is you can use the money that the state has and the resources that the state have to do good things. And you can use it to make sure the workforce is trained, that people get good jobs out of the public dollars that are being used. You can make sure that labor standards go across the board, so that you're paying people, you're giving them pension benefits, you're giving them health care, which should not be out of the realm of possibility, because state employees get it, and workers in the labor movement get it. But there is that niche in the state government that we don't know what they get, quite frankly.
Right. And you know, it's interesting. I went to Manchester City Hall one night because there was a hearing with two of the executive counselors. It was Chris Pappas and it was Andrew Valinsky and someone from the highway department. And the topic was, should we raise the tolls on 93? And people came out to speak in favor of it. And many people came out to speak in opposition to it. But someone from the highway department was saying, you know, we're kind of past the point, you know, of maintaining our roads. We should have raised the tolls a long time ago. And again, we still couldn't get it passed.
Right. No, I think that's been problematic. So the Executive Council has jurisdiction over the 10-year highway plan. So they're responsible for, all the contracts that come before it. And that's a tough job in and of itself, but the legislature gave them that responsibility a number of years ago. So right now, when you look at the needs of the highway system in the state of New Hampshire, you look at the amount of money available, and I have no idea what this pandemic, with all of this fact that people weren't on the roads buying gasoline, and all that's going to have a big impact going forward in the future.
Right.
So that's part of what the council does, is they look at contracts like that, and the other thing the council does, which is really important, a lot of people are drilling down on this, is the council has responsibility for improving all of the appointments, with a few exceptions. But for the most part, the governor, does not have the authority just to simply go ahead and appoint people. It has to go through the council. You need 3 votes on pretty much everything you do. And there are some big jobs that are currently in play right now. Certainly the Department of Education, the court system in the state of New Hampshire, that was very controversial, the nominee for the Chief Justice. So there are a lot of that, but what you have is every department, every commission and things like that all come before the council. So it's a big job. There's a lot of responsibilities, hundreds of contracts that come before you. So I think my training and my experience and what I've done in the legislature and been a legislator and worked and lobbied, I think it really has prepared me for this work.
Right, exactly. And you are running against Ted Gatsas. So how would you differentiate yourself from your opponent?
Well, I mean, I think Mr. Gatsas and I have very different life experiences. I mean, my experience has been, working in working as a firefighter, working in the community, working as an advocate in progressive organizations, working as a labor leader and fighting for the benefits of workers throughout the state. Now, Mr. Gatsas can define his own, thing. But what I would say is that if you're looking for somebody who has a background in fighting for the interests of working families, who understands the stress and the strains that workers are under, have been under, and are under in a very big way right now, if you want somebody who has been innovative and passed legislation and worked on issues like family leave and healthcare and other things like that, I think my record is pretty good in those areas, and I would hold it up against anybody in the state of New Hampshire for that.
Yeah,
so.
And it's interesting because the Executive Council works with the governor, but how much control does the Executive Council have over him when he vetoes? How many bills did he veto in the last year? Like over 50?
Oh, over 70, yeah.
Over 70.
75.
But the Executive Council can't do anything. Or can you? No.
Well, we can't do vetoes. We can't certainly override vetoes. The legislature has that responsibility.
Right.
Quite frankly, I think it's. I think it's a stick in the eye of state legislators and people who spend hundreds and hundreds of hours laboring in committees and listening and taking testimony.
And bipartisan work, too.
That's right, and crafting legislation.
Right.
For the governor, I can understand that there may be some disagreement, but when there's disagreement on dozens and dozens and dozens of bills, what is that all about?
Right.
And I think there was a rally, I understand, yesterday on this, and I think that people got to flip that over and realize what's going on within the state. And the other thing I'll mention is, And the legislature has challenged the governor. You know, the CARES Act money that came across, you know, $4.2 billion, I think, or $3 billion. A lot of money came into the state. Well, the governor basically took control of that.
Yeah.
Now,
He wanted to give it to private schools.
well, private schools and, you know, friends of his, that contributors and people who've been in the business. That's not to say they're not capable of doing the work, but that's not the process in New Hampshire. The process in New Hampshire is you come before the Executive Council, you place a bid, and the Executive Council has jurisdiction over that. And the governor basically said no to the legislature, no to the Executive Council, says I'm in charge. Well, I don't think he is in charge. And I think sooner or later there's going to be a constitutional challenge against the governor's authority to do what he did. The legislature has started that process, and I think we need at some point to determine how much they can take from this current constitution. The governor doesn't like the Executive Council. I talked to Maggie Hassan one day. Maggie Hassan said, you know, it's great to be governor, but because her colleagues were asking her in the Senate, she says, it's not as great as you think in New Hampshire because you're really constrained by an Executive Council.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was Jean Shaheen who explained to another governor when she was governor what it's like to be governor of New Hampshire and have this Executive Council. And she says to him, what would you do in that position? And that other governor from another state said, I think I'd quit.
Yeah. But it is, you know, and I don't want to, I know you got time constraints, but to that point, you know what, the strength, I think, of New Hampshire government is that people have the right to participate, and they do, and hundreds and hundreds of people, boards and commissions and other things like that. And it really is, you know, it really is a founding principle of New Hampshire, is what people, when they put this state together, and they established it, they said, this is the way we want our government to be. And it has been in place for many, many, many years. And people, I think, appreciate the fact that there is a dialogue that has to take place, that you got to come to consensus, that you got to work things out, just like we do in the legislature and just like we do in everyday lives.
I mean, yeah, at best, you know, we have great people in the legislature who are nurses and teachers and firefighters. And then on the other side of it, it's somebody who moves here with a lot of money and doesn't want to pay taxes, and so they just run and they stay and they stay and they stay, and it's all about how they can hold on and not have to pay their taxes.
Well, and I think, you know, I mean, I think that's a struggle, right? The struggle that we always have in legislature, different opinions about things. But in the end, you know, government serves a key role in people's lives. It is a way that we equalize things for people. It's a way that we take what the resources that we have and to make sure that everybody's treated with dignity and respect and have access to those kinds of services, just like everybody does. And you shouldn't have to be rich or famous or, you know, have more than somebody else. The government's responsibility is to make sure that there is some sense of, at least the way the resources in the state are distributed, that it's fair and it's equitable. And there are many people in this state of New Hampshire that depend on the government, on the state of New Hampshire, to help them with their health care, to help them with their everyday problems, and to work with them. And I think to snub your nose at government is not the way to go. And I've been in it all my life. And I know what government's capable of. I know what it can do. I was a firefighter for a long period of time, and never once did anybody say to me, you know, I wish you didn't come. I wish you weren't there. You know, I wish we had cut your taxes so that the fire department wouldn't have the capacity to do it. Now, that's in your face kind of an example. But every day that happens in the state of New Hampshire. We don't have enough money committed to mental health. We don't have enough money committed to the roads. We don't have enough money. And so you're really starving government, and that is unfortunately the plan of people, some people in the New Hampshire legislature. You know, to starve it, starve the beast, as they refer to it as, and they wake up every day doing that.
Yeah, and I still don't get it. I see, you know, Free Staters will put out where we're going, we don't need roads. I'm like, yeah, that's really funny, you know, when you imagine that cars can fly, but they can't. We do actually need roads.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think that people really break it down. You know, they want somebody to show up at their house if it's on fire. They want somebody to make sure they're protected if somebody threatens them. They want decent roads. They want good schools. They want all those kinds of things.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's the thing that binds us together as a democracy and as a state, and that's what I stand for. That's what you stand for. I've known you a long time, and so I think that's what this fight is all about. And we've got a big job ahead of us in the next few weeks, not even 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
But we're really fighting, as Bernie Sanders and we know has been saying for a long time, we're really fighting for our future and fighting for who we are and what we are and how we're going to live the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we will get rid of the most dangerous and disastrous president who's ever been in control of the White House. But the thing I just keep saying is he's a symptom of the issue. He's, not the one and only problem, because he wouldn't have gotten there if we didn't have huge problems and huge gaps. And so, the work continues. And
well, and I think that what plays itself out if you're in politics and you've been doing this. I mean, there is an undercurrent, and you see them popping up on social media all the time. There's an undercurrent of really mean-spirited people that just. I don't know. I mean, some of them are machines, some of them are real.
Some of them are bots,
but there are some real people that
Yeah.
have some pretty different ideas than I have about things. But the thing that always bothers me about social media is kind of you can be anonymous, you can hide, you can be behind it. But some of the comments that they make to you or myself or other people that are running for public office, it's inappropriate to say the least. I can disagree, you can disagree about the future and about our direction. But to start calling people the way we are, that's not what we do in New Hampshire. It's not what we do in Manchester. We don't treat people like that. So I think, I would ask Ted Gansas, I would ask anybody who's running for public office right now to really have a statement that says we're against that. We want to tap that down. We're not going to be behind it. Never, ever would we, as people of the city of Manchester and the state of New Hampshire, support that kind of stuff.
Right, exactly. I mean, and especially now when you look at the tone, again, coming straight from the White House. I mean, we have, Governor Whitmer, people who were so emphatically in love with the president deciding that they want to kidnap her and try her for treason. And he's holding a rally and encouraging people to chant "lock her up." I mean, that's sort of like the tone of where we're at right now. So I'm glad you're calling on your, opponent to say, hey, this is not the kind of rhetoric we should have when we are, in, public office.
Right. And I mean, Ted Gatsas, Mr. Gatsas has been around a long time. He knows a lot of people in Manchester, and I can't believe that he would support any of that kind of stuff. But I think both of us need to say it. And anybody who's running for public office, enough of that, really.
Right,
and, enough of it.
Right. Well, let's see. So our producers have entered the building. And I don't know if this means we will be taking a short intermission. I'm just filling in for the day. Or if I should...
Another 5 minutes.
I got another 5 minutes. All right. This is our bonus round.
Okay.
Let's talk about anything else we want to talk about.
Sure.
Is there anything else that you really, really want to get out there to the audience?
Well, let me say this. I have 4 grandchildren, 2 of them which are in school right now. And I go down every, 2 days a week and help them in the afternoon to try to get through all of what's going on. And I think a lot of people are doing that right now. They're just, because, everybody, my daughter-in-law's home. She's trying to work at home. The kids are, it's really a tough situation. But the other thing I want to mention is I came across a report the other day that the Economic Policy Institute was doing. And for the first time I heard this term, which was teacher penalty. And I'd never heard this term before. And what the term was meaning is this, is that teachers, they are penalized. They are penalized when they enter this business. And when you compare the teachers' salaries and the teachers' benefits and the hours and wages and working conditions of teachers, and you put that against the private sector, there is, for instance, New Hampshire has about an 18.2% penalty. They're right in kind of the middle of this thing. But it moves up. So teachers who make this decision to be in this career and doing all this stuff are really at a disadvantage. Yeah. And so, number one, we have to thank God that they're there, because they're not there for the money. And I heard horror stories on the Zoom call that we were on the other day. But the other thing that I think we have to be concerned about for those people who have gone through this, going through this right now, and they're doing the very best they can, is there not going to be people entering this business in the years to come.
Right.
It's getting harder and harder to get teachers. It's going to be worse in the years to come, especially when they look at that penalty that they're charged, and they're going to go into the private sector. That's going to peel all kinds of talent off. And the other thing is that, whether it's police officers or other public services, people are just not going to go into that business. They're just going to get out of that. So I'm concerned about the future of the public sector, about being able to recruit and retain people in the public sector. And the teachers, I think, are going to be at the forefront of this. And I am really worried about the years to come. And, I honor them for what they've done, for the hard work they're doing. I watch these teachers on Zoom, and I say, we're making the best of it. They're doing a good job, and the kids are learning, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same at all.
And for any of us.
Yeah.
So let's hope that we get beyond this. Let's hope that we can do this. But we have to value public employees, have to value teachers. And, I know we're almost up, but let me say this.
Yeah.
When everything went to hell in a handbasket, it was the state employees who showed up, who opened the doors to the unemployment office, who kicked their desks apart, who put on the mask, and who were overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed. The system was overwhelmed by people. Thousands and thousands of people applying for unemployment. 49,000 at the point. But they were overwhelmed, and they did one heck of a job.
I will say this. I collected unemployment for 4 months, and I got in early. We shut the clinic down pretty quickly, and we all signed up, but we never had a single problem, except I had one day where I had a hard time getting online, so I called a phone number and talked to a human being on a Sunday who just went through the whole process with me over the phone, and everything was fine. I know. It was seamless. I mean,
and you got a system that had been ticking along with so many, a certain amount of unemployed workers, going from 17 from 2 or 3% to 17 or 18%. And they did a hell of a job. But one of the real problems with that has been that a lot of women, unfortunately, have taken a big hit in this process. And they became the caretakers, and they interrupted their careers. And when that happens, a lot of women don't get back on it. The unemployment for women was higher than men, which is unusual in the economy. It's kind of a flip. So there's some serious things that are going to play itself out over a period of time.
Yeah.
And people have paid a high price for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to be at about 3:30, and Jim O'Connell wants to take over the interview so he can ask questions of the Honorable Mark MacKenzie, candidate for the Executive Council.
Well, it's going to be more of a discussion. The three of us will be on.
Oh, more of a discussion with the Honorable John Hopwood. Dishonorable John Hopwood.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. This has been great. I always love coming on the show.